One of our incredible Patreons, Gish Life, gave me a character concept I just had to build, and that is to make yourself the perfect mount. So let's do this thing. In order to pull this build off, I went custom lineage and I took the telepathic feat. The telepathic feat takes care of the first of our three main problems, and that is communication. Once we go into Wildshape, we cannot talk to our allies. By taking telepathic, we can project our thoughts into their minds, and thus they can understand us, and we can be a communicating part of the party, which is super important for this type of build. Telepathic is also a half feat, so we're going to get +1, which we're going to put towards wisdom, as well as use our custom lineage stat bump to wisdom as well. So we're starting off with a +3 to wisdom. This is particularly good with the Moon Druid because normally our physical stats are going to be variable depending on whatever creature we're turning into, but our wisdom stat will always matter. An extra little note to add to telepathic is that it gives us the detect thought spell, which is a utility spell, and being someone who specializes as a scout could come in handy. Now, speaking of specializing as a scout, from our background, we're going to want to make sure that we take the stealth proficiency as well as grabbing perception and insight so that we can make ourselves a really fantastic scout. Now, our next problem is our AC. By turning into these beasts, we have tremendously low AC, and then by being a druid, we have low AC as well. So we need to take care of that problem, and how we're going to do that is by our leveling structure. It's going to be 2 levels into druid, 1 level into monk, and the rest into moon druid. That 1 level into monk gives us unarmored defense, which works in our animal shape form. If you don't believe me, I'm going to go ahead and link the rules down in the description below. Now, taking those 2 levels first into druid as a moon druid is probably the most powerful you can be at these levels. So we definitely can afford an investment level because we have plenty of strength to spare for quite a while. What's really cool about taking the monk for our armor is that it's going to add its wisdom to whatever creature we change into because they already automatically add their dex. So what's really cool about this is we can take something like the flying snake and it's going to take our AC from 14, which is including its dex, and then we're going to add our wisdom, and that can be anywhere to +5. So we can go from 14 to 19. Shield spell all the time. That's essentially what having +5 to your wisdom does, is it gives the shield spell every one of your wild shapes at all times. Really, really powerful. Now that's the second of our problems. What is the third? Well, the third is our concentration. The reason for this is that we are likely going to be casting a spell and then wild shaping and trying to maintain that spell throughout the battle. Our best bet to pull this off is either the resilient constitution feat or the warcaster feat. Both are going to work in your wild shape, so it's okay to pick whatever one you see fit. As far as our ASIs are concerned, we're going to want to make sure that we pick up this concentration feat, whatever one we decide, but then we're going to want to make sure we max out wisdom, and then what we do after that is more flexible, but I would actually consider taking the second concentration feat just to double up on making sure we never break concentration. But enough details, now I want to talk about the actual mounts that we can become. The first potential mount we can be is a classic, the brown bear. Multi-attack, hits like a truck for the level. Its main weakness is really its AC, which we've largely covered by taking that level into monk. So yes, it's going to be very difficult to go wrong with the brown bear. Another great option is the direwolf. The direwolf has pack tactics, and if you have someone riding on your back like we've designed to be, then we are going to always have advantage on our attacks, which is really solid. It also has some benefits like advantage to certain perception checks. So if you're wanting to do some scouting, this is another one to consider. One of my all-time favorites is the giant spider. This guy is going to give a spider climb, so now we can take our rider up on walls and whatnot, and it also has a ranged attack that gives the restrained condition, and then they're going to have to start making strength saves against it. So if there's an enemy with low AC and low strength, this is a great option. Now at level 5, we're going to be able to become water creatures. The first one I want to mention is giant toad. I think it's hilarious because you get to swoop your tongue out and swallow people, and then you get to hop around, you have a big jump. It actually works better on land because your jump actually does something on land, so you can jump onto buildings and whatnot and swallow people. Mostly I like it because I think it's funny to ride a giant toad and be hopping around, so there's that. But your best all-around option for underwater combat is going to be the giant octopus. It has automatic grapples and it has some escape mechanisms. Really cool. At level 6, we're going to get a CR bump here, so we can start looking at things like the giant constrictor snake, which is just a nasty auto restrain attack. But my favorite one at this level has got to be the saber-toothed tiger. I mean, it's a saber-toothed tiger. Imagine your knight riding in on a saber-toothed tiger. That's just awesome as hell. It's specifically good at targeting low-strength creatures and kind of knocking them over and then punishing them while they're on the ground. A consideration is the Hunter Shark. It's a pretty good combat wild shape for underwater, but I don't think it quite pushes out the giant octopus yet. Now at level 8, we get our flying creatures. And again, I'm going to slaughter this pronunciation, but if your campaign allows you to change into dinosaurs, check out the Quetzalcoatlus. Someone help me out there. Otherwise, the giant eagle or the giant vulture are going to work just fine. The last one comes in at Druid 9 or our level 10. This is the giant scorpion. The giant scorpion is a nasty package. It has 3 attacks, does a ton of poison damage, whether or not they save, has automatic grapples. Yeah, it's a nasty guy. It'll probably be our go-to land-based combat wild shape. The next thing to talk about is the spells that we can cast along with our wild shape. These spells are really going to fall into 2 categories. Either it's non-concentration with a long duration, or it's going to be concentration based that we're going to use before combats. So an example of the first kind of spell is Long Strider. It lasts a long time, no concentration, and it's our level 1 spell that we're going to be able to spam. I imagine that because we're in wild shape so often, we're going to have a lot of spell slots remaining at the end of the day. So let's spend some of those on Long Strider when we think it's going to be relevant, and then go into our wild shape with our concentration spell and still have that bonus movement to work with. As for the second type of spell, we're just looking for our best concentration spell. At level 1, it's probably Entangle. At level 2, it's probably Summon Beast. At level 3, it's probably Call Lightning. At level 4, we have Polymorph, which I would use a little bit differently. I might come out of my wild shape to polymorph someone who really needs the support, then go back into a wild shape from there. Kind of more as an emergency button than a fight winning spell. It's when you really need a second wind on that combat. And then at level 5, we're going to get something like Summon Draconic Spirit, which I think is really cool with the build. And you get the idea. As we continue moving down, you're just going to choose your favorite concentration spells and cast them for wild shaping. In those early levels, we're really just, we can solo fights, we're just overpowered. Those mid levels, we can focus more on our combat utility and getting our teammates around and picking the right wild shape for the job. Then as we get to the later levels, we might want to go into our elemental wild shape to win specific combats. Of course, that takes 2 of our wild shapes, so that can be punished, but that's kind of our next combat buff. Overall, I think it's more of a fun concept than a super optimized one. I think there's a lot of cool things you can do with it, and it really brings the team together. You're not doing this to play alone, you're doing this to make your team stand out as well, and I really like when a build does that. Let me know how you guys would make yourselves into the perfect mount in the comments down below. Again, I want to give another shout out to Gish Life. Thank you so much for the inspiration for this build, brother. Appreciate it, and you're an awesome builder. If you want to show support to the channel just like Gish Life, consider checking out the Patreon, and you're going to get some awesome benefits along the way. With that, my friends, hope you have yourselves a great day, and I'll catch you on the next one. See you then.